What if I told you that everything you're trying to control is actually controlling you? Think about it. Right now, in this very moment, your mouth speaks words you didn't consciously choose. Your mood shifts like weather patterns beyond your awareness. Your money flows in directions that surprise you. Your mind races through thoughts that seem to have a life of their own. Most people spend their entire lives chasing external control. They want to control their circumstances, their relationships, their outcomes. They exhaust themselves trying to manage the world around them, yet they remain strangers to the four gates that determine everything. Your mouth, your mood, your money, your mind. These are not separate territories. They are four expressions of one river, four faces of one mountain, four keys to one door. The ancient masters understood this truth. They knew that the person who controls these four gates controls their destiny, not through force, not through struggle, but through understanding, through presence, through the quiet power that comes from inner mastery. But here's what most people miss. They try to control each gate separately. They work on their communication skills while their emotions run wild. They manage their finances while their thoughts scatter like leaves in the wind. They meditate for peace while harsh words spill from their lips without awareness. This is like trying to calm a river by grabbing at the water. The harder you grasp, the more it slips through your fingers. There is another way. Watch a master at work. Notice how they move. Their words are precise, chosen, powerful, not because they think before they speak, but because they have become the space in which conscious speech arises. Their emotional state remains steady, whether facing praise or criticism, not because they suppress their feelings, but because they have learned to be the sky in which all weather passes. Their relationship with resources flows naturally, not because they manipulate money, but because they understand the deeper currents of energy exchange. Their mind remains clear and focused, not because they fight their thoughts, but because they have remembered who they truly are beneath the mental noise. This is mastery. This is freedom. This is your birthright. But why do so few people claim it? Because they have been taught backwards. They have been conditioned to believe that power comes from accumulating more, controlling more, managing more. They measure success by how much they can handle, how many plates they can keep spinning, how busy they can become. The masters laugh at this. They know that true power comes from less, not more, from simplicity, not complexity, from being, not doing. Think of a mountain. It doesn't struggle to be tall. It doesn't fight to be stable. It simply is. And because it is fully itself, it commands respect. Rivers change their course around it. Winds acknowledge its presence. Time itself seems to slow in its vicinity. You can become like the mountain, centered, rooted, unshakable. But first you must understand the illusion that keeps most people trapped. The illusion is this: you believe you are your thoughts, your emotions, your words, your circumstances. You identify with the storm instead of recognizing yourself as the sky. You become the wave instead of remembering you are the ocean. When you identify with your thoughts, every mental fluctuation disturbs your peace. When you identify with your emotions, every mood swing becomes a crisis. When you identify with your words, you become trapped by everything you've said. When you identify with your money, every financial change threatens your security. But what if you are none of these things? What if you are the awareness in which thoughts appear and disappear? What if you are the presence in which emotions arise and pass away? What if you are the consciousness that witnesses words being spoken and money being exchanged? This is not philosophy. This is practical wisdom. This is the foundation upon which all mastery is built. The ancient warrior traditions understood this principle. They trained their students not just in physical techniques, but in the art of remaining centered, regardless of external conditions.
A true warrior could face any opponent because they were not fighting the opponent. They were expressing their own nature. They were being themselves so completely that victory was inevitable. Your life is no different. Every day presents you with opponents. Difficult conversations that test your mouth. Challenging situations that test your mood. Financial pressures that test your relationship with money. Mental turbulence that test your inner stability. Most people fight these opponents. They resist difficult conversations, struggle against challenging emotions, worry about money, and battle their own thoughts. They exhaust themselves in conflicts that exist only because they have forgotten who they are. The masters take a different approach. They don't fight the opponent. They become so rooted in their own center that the opponent has nothing to push against. They respond from stillness. They act from clarity. They move from wisdom. This is what it means to control your mouth, mood, money, and mind, not through suppression or manipulation, but through understanding and presence.
Your mouth becomes controlled when you realize that words are seeds. Every word you speak plants something in the field of reality. Most people scatter seeds randomly, unconsciously, reactively. They wonder why their garden grows wild with weeds. The master plants each seed deliberately. They speak from silence. Their words carry weight because they come from depths. Your mood becomes controlled when you realize that emotions are weather patterns in the sky of consciousness. Most people become the storm. They are swept away by every emotional wind. The master remains as the sky. They feel everything but are disturbed by nothing. They allow emotions to flow through them without resistance or attachment. Your money becomes controlled when you realize that resources are energy in motion. Most people try to dam the river, to hoard and accumulate. But energy that stops flowing becomes stagnant. The master understands the natural rhythm of giving and receiving. They align with the flow rather than fighting it. Your mind becomes controlled when you realize that thoughts are visitors, not residents. Most people invite every thought to stay for dinner. They feed their worries, entertain their fears, and give their full attention to mental noise. The master remains as the host. They acknowledge each thought politely, but don't feel obligated to believe it or act on it. This understanding changes everything. When you are no longer identified with your thoughts, you can observe them clearly. You can see which ones serve you and which ones drain your energy. You can choose which thoughts to feed and which ones to let pass. When you are no longer identified with your emotions, you can feel deeply without being overwhelmed. You can experience the full spectrum of human feeling while maintaining your center. You can respond rather than react. When you are no longer identified with your words, you can speak with power and precision. You can say what needs to be said without being attached to the outcome. You can communicate from authenticity rather than from ego. When you are no longer identified with your money, you can engage with resources from wisdom rather than fear. You can give generously and receive gracefully. You can create abundance by aligning with the natural flow of energy. But how do you make this shift from identification to awareness? Through practice, through patience, through the gradual cultivation of presence. The first step is recognition. Begin to notice the patterns. Watch how your mouth moves when you're not paying attention. Observe how your mood shifts throughout the day. Notice your relationship with money during different situations. Become aware of the constant stream of thoughts flowing through your mind. This is not about judgment. This is about awareness. You cannot change what you cannot see. The second step is space. Create gaps between stimulus and response. When someone says something that normally triggers you, when an emotion arises, breathe. When a thought appears,
observe it before believing it. When money concerns come up, return to your center before acting. In this space, choice becomes possible. In this gap, freedom exists.
The third step is practice. Choose one gate to focus on first. Perhaps your mouth, for 1 week. Pay attention to every word you speak. Notice the quality of your observe the effects of your words on others and on yourself. Practice speaking from stillness rather than reactivity, or perhaps your mood. Spend time each day simply feeling what you feel without trying to change it. Notice how emotions arise, peak, and pass away naturally when you don't resist them. Practice being the sky that contains all weather, or perhaps your money. Examine your beliefs about resources. Notice the emotions that arise around financial decisions. Practice gratitude for what you have while taking wise action toward what you want to create. Or perhaps your mind. Sit quietly each day and simply observe your thoughts. Don't try to stop them or control them. Simply notice them coming and going like clouds across the sky. Practice returning to the present moment whenever you notice yourself lost in mental activity. As you work with one gate, you'll notice the others beginning to align naturally. This is because they are not really separate. They are 4 aspects of one consciousness. As you become more present in one area, presence spreads to all areas. The warrior who masters speech finds that emotional reactivity decreases. The person who gains mastery over mood discovers that financial decisions become clearer. The individual who develops a healthy relationship with money notices that mental chatter quiets down. The practitioner who observes thoughts without attachment finds that words flow more consciously. This is the path of integration. This is the way of wholeness. But remember, mastery is not a destination. It is a way of being. It is not something you achieve once and then forget about. It is something you practice moment by moment, day by day, year by year. The mountain doesn't become tall once and then relax. It maintains its height through constant presence. The river doesn't flow to the ocean once and then stop. It continues its journey with each passing moment. Your mastery of the 4 gates is similar. It requires ongoing attention, continuous refinement, persistent practice. But this is not a burden. This is the joy of being fully alive. This is the pleasure of expressing your true nature. This is the satisfaction of living from your center rather than from the periphery of circumstance. Notice how different this approach is from most self-improvement methods. Most techniques ask you to add something to yourself, learn new skills, develop new habits, acquire new knowledge. But the path of the 4 gates is about subtraction, not addition. It's about removing the obstacles to what you already are. It's about clearing away the debris that obscures your natural wisdom. It's about returning to simplicity rather than accumulating complexity. You already know how to speak consciously. You've done it before, in moments of deep connection or important conversation. You already know how to remain emotionally centered. You've experienced it during times of crisis when something deeper than personality took over. You already know how to flow with resource wisely. You've felt it when giving or receiving felt perfectly natural. You already know how to observe thoughts without being caught by them. You've tasted it in moments of stillness or beauty. The practices don't create these abilities. They simply help you access them more consistently. This is why the masters speak of remembering rather than learning. They talk about awakening rather than acquiring. They point toward recognition rather than achievement. What you seek, you already are. What you want to control is already under the guidance of your deepest wisdom. What you hope to master already exists within your essential nature. The four gates are not obstacles to overcome. They are doorways to walk through. They are not problems to solve. They are opportunities to express your true power. And your true power is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand attention. It simply is, like the mountain, like the river, like the sky. When you speak from this power, people listen, not because you force them to, but because something authentic is being expressed. When you move from this center, situations naturally arrange themselves around your presence. When you engage with resources from this understanding, abundance flows naturally. When you sink from this stillness, clarity emerges effortlessly. This is what awaits you on the other side of mastery. Not a life of constant effort and struggle, but a life of natural flow and authentic expression. Not a personality that has to work hard to maintain control, but a presence that naturally creates harmony wherever it goes. The invitation is simple. Stop trying to control everything out there. Start cultivating mastery in here. Stop managing symptoms. Start addressing the source. Stop fighting the river. Start learning to flow. Your mouth, your mood, your money, your mind, they are waiting for your conscious attention. They are ready to serve your highest purpose. They want to express your deepest wisdom. But they cannot do this while you remain unconscious. They cannot function clearly while you identify with their fluctuations. They cannot serve your growth while you try to control them through force. They need your presence. They need your awareness. They need your patient, persistent, loving attention. Give them this gift. Give yourself this freedom. Step through the four gates into the life that is already yours. Now comes the question that separates the curious from the committed. How do you actually walk through these gates? How do you transform understanding into living reality? The answer lies not in complexity, but in discipline. Not in effort, but in consistency. Not in perfection, but in practice. Every master began as a student who couldn't control their mouth. Every sage started as someone whose mood swung like a pendulum. Every wise person once struggled with money like everyone else. Every enlightened being had a mind that raced and worried and created suffering. What changed wasn't their humanity. What transformed was their relationship to their humanity. They learned the ancient art of inner discipline. Not the harsh discipline that breaks the spirit, but the gentle discipline that shapes the soul. Not the rigid control that creates tension, but the fluid mastery that creates freedom. The path has four training grounds, four schools of mastery, four laboratories where you transform from unconscious reaction to conscious response. The first gate calls to you now, your mouth, the gateway through which your inner world becomes outer reality. Most people speak like sleepwalkers. Words tumble out automatically, unconsciously, reactively. They speak to fill silence, to defend positions, to win arguments, to seek approval. Their words scatter like seeds in the wind, taking root randomly, creating gardens they never intended. But what if your mouth became a sacred instrument? What if every word carried the precision of an archer's arrow? What if silence became your foundation and speech became your conscious choice? This is the discipline of conscious communication. Begin here. For the next 7 days, speak only when your words serve a purpose. Notice the impulse to speak before you actually speak. Feel the energy that wants to become words. Ask yourself, does this need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said now?
You'll be amazed at how much unnecessary speech falls away. Watch what happens in your relationships when you stop filling every silence with words. Notice how others respond when you speak from stillness rather than reactivity. Feel the power that builds when you choose your words instead of letting words choose you. But this is just the beginning. The second discipline involves the quality of your speech. Not just when you speak, but how you speak. Not just what you say, but the energy behind your words. Your carries more than meaning. It carries your state of being. When you speak from anxiety, anxiety spreads. When you speak from anger, anger multiplies. When you speak from peace, peace expands. Practice speaking from your center. Before important conversations, take 3 conscious breaths. Feel your feet on the ground. Connect with the stillness that lives beneath your thoughts. Then speak from that place. Your words will carry different weight. Your presence will command different attention. Your communication will create different results. But there's another level. The masters understand that the most powerful speech often contains no words at all. They know that presence communicates more than language. They've learned that who you are speaks louder than what you say.
Cultivate the art of conscious silence. Sit quietly for periods each day, not to empty your mind, but to fill your presence. Not to stop thinking, but to remember who you are beneath your thoughts. From this fullness, your words become gifts rather than demands. Your speech becomes service rather than selfishness. Your mouth becomes a doorway for wisdom rather than a weapon for ego. This is mastery of the first gate. Now the second gate beckons. Your mood, the emotional weather that colors every experience. Most people are victims of their emotional states. Happy when things go well, upset when they don't, confident in success, anxious in uncertainty. Their mood determines their choices. Their choices create their circumstances. Their circumstances reinforce their mood. They live trapped in an endless cycle, never realizing they hold the key to freedom. But you can choose differently. You can learn the ancient art of emotional alchemy, the ability to transform any emotional state into wisdom, any feeling into fuel, any mood into mastery. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. This means developing a different relationship with the emotional dimension of life. Consider a tree in a storm. The branches bend and sway with the wind, but the trunk remains rooted. The leaves may be stripped away, but the essence survives. The storm passes, and the tree stands stronger than before. Your emotions are like weather patterns. They arise, they intensify, they pass away, but you are not the weather. You are the sky in which all weather appears. Practice this recognition. When strong emotion arises, instead of being swept away, become curious. Instead of resisting, observe. Instead of identifying with the feeling, notice that you are the one who is aware of the feeling. This creates space. In this space, choice becomes possible. The warrior traditions teach a powerful practice for emotional mastery. They call it the art of the gap, the space between stimulus and response, the moment where freedom lives. Someone criticizes you. The criticism lands, emotion arises. But before you react, you breathe. You remember who you are. Then you respond from wisdom rather than woundedness. Someone praises you. The praise lands, emotion arises. But before you inflate, you breathe. You remember that your worth doesn't depend on external validation. Then you receive the praise gracefully, without attachment. This is not emotional numbness.
This is emotional intelligence. This is not suppression. This is transformation. Train yourself in small moments. When waiting in line and impatience arises, practice patience. When facing delay and frustration builds, practice acceptance. When dealing with difficult people and anger surfaces, practice compassion. These everyday situations become your gymnasium. Each emotion becomes your teacher. Every mood becomes an opportunity to strengthen your center. But emotional mastery goes beyond personal benefit. When you are no longer at the mercy of your moods, you become a gift to everyone around you. Your stability becomes their anchor. Your peace becomes their refuge. Your emotional freedom becomes their inspiration. This is the discipline of the second gate. The third gate stands before you now.
Your money, the energy that flows through your life in material form.
Most people have a complicated relationship with resources. They want more, but fear not having enough. They pursue abundance, but operate from scarcity. They dream of freedom, but remain trapped by financial anxiety. They treat money as an enemy to be conquered, or a god to be worshipped.
They never learn to see it clearly for what it actually is. Money is energy, nothing more, nothing less. It flows according to natural laws, just like water or electricity. When you align with these laws, abundance becomes natural. When you fight them, struggle becomes inevitable. The first law is circulation. Energy that stops moving becomes stagnant. Water that doesn't flow becomes a swamp. Money that doesn't circulate loses its power to create value. Most people try to dam the river. They hoard and accumulate out of fear. But this creates the very scarcity they're trying to avoid. The river backs up, becomes stagnant, eventually dries up. The masters understand a different approach. They keep money moving. They give generously and receive gracefully. They invest wisely and spend consciously. They treat resources as tools for service rather than trophies for ego. Practice conscious circulation. Give something every day, even if it's small. Not from obligation, but from abundance. Not to get something back, but to keep the energy flowing. Notice how this changes your relationship with resources. The second law is value creation. Money flows toward value. The more value you create, the more resources flow your way. But value isn't just about what you do. It's about who you become. When you master your mouth, your communication creates value. When you master your mood, your presence creates value. When you master your mind, your clarity creates value. When you master all four gates, you become a source of tremendous value in the world. Focus on becoming more valuable, rather than just making more money. Develop skills that serve others. Cultivate qualities that enhance every interaction. Create solutions that make life better for people around you. Money will follow naturally. The third law is alignment. Resources flow most freely when your actions align with your values, your work aligns with your purpose, your spending aligns with your priorities. Most people live fragmented financial lives. They earn money doing work they don't believe in. They spend money on things they don't need. They save money for goals they don't truly want. Then they wonder why abundance feels so difficult. Examine your relationship with resources. Honestly, does your work reflect your values? Does your spending support your growth? Make adjustments gradually or consistently. Align your financial choices with your deeper wisdom. Watch how this creates a natural flow of abundance. This is mastery of the third gate. The fourth gate awaits. Your mind, the source from which all other gates emerge. Most people are strangers to their own minds. They live at the surface of consciousness, tossed about by every mental wave. They believe every thought, follow every impulse, react to every mental movement. They think they are their thoughts, instead of realizing they are the awareness in which thoughts appear. But the mind, when properly understood, is your greatest ally. When consciously directed, it becomes a powerful tool for creation. When wisely observed, it reveals the secrets of reality. When skillfully trained, it opens doorways to unlimited possibility. The first training is observation. Sit quietly and simply watch your thoughts. Don't try to stop them or control them. Don't judge them or analyze them. Simply observe them arising and passing away like clouds in the sky. Notice that you are the one watching. You are not the thoughts themselves but the awareness that perceives thoughts. This recognition changes everything. The second training is questioning. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every mental story needs to be believed. Not every worry requires your concern. When a thought appears, ask, is this thought true? How do I know it's true? How do I feel when I believe this thought? Who would I be without this thought? Most thoughts cannot survive honest questioning. They dissolve back into the nothingness from which they came. The third training is direction. Once you realize you are not your thoughts, you can begin to choose which thoughts to focus on. You can direct your mental energy toward what serves your growth rather than what feeds your fears. This is not positive thinking. This is conscious thinking. This is not denying reality. This is creating reality from a higher level of consciousness. Practice focusing your mind like a laser beam. Choose one object, one breath, one phrase, one image. Hold your attention there for increasing periods of time. When the mind wanders, gently return it to your chosen focus. This develops mental strength. This builds concentration. This creates the foundation for all other forms of mastery. But the ultimate training transcends thinking altogether. It's the practice of resting in pure awareness. Not thinking about awareness, but being awareness itself. In this state, thoughts come and go without disturbing your peace. Emotions arise and pass without creating drama. Words flow naturally without effort. Resources circulate freely without attachment. This is the source of all mastery. This is the center from which all control emerges. This is the stillness that makes all movement possible. Train in this stillness daily, not as an escape from life, but as preparation for life, not as a retreat from responsibility, but as the foundation for all effective action. From this center, you master all four gates simultaneously. Your mouth speaks wisdom naturally. Your mood remains stable automatically. Your money flows abundantly, effortlessly. Your mind functions clearly, spontaneously. This is not the end of practice. This is practice without end. This is not the achievement of perfection. This is the perfection of practice itself. Each day offers new opportunities to refine your mastery. Each interaction becomes a chance to express your understanding. Each challenge becomes an invitation to deepen your realization. The path never ends because life never stops presenting new situations. But your relationship to the path transforms completely. What once felt like struggle becomes natural flow. What once required effort becomes effortless expression. What once seemed impossible becomes inevitably yours. The four gates stand open.
The path of inner discipline stretches before you. The choice, as always, is yours. But what happens when you actually walk through? What does life look like when the four gates move in harmony? What becomes possible when mouth, mood, money, and mind serve your highest purpose instead of sabotaging your deepest dreams? Most people can't even conceive of such a life. They've lived so long in fragmentation that integration seems like fantasy. They've been divided against themselves for so long that wholeness feels impossible. Yet every master was once where you are now. Every sage began with the same scattered thoughts, the same emotional reactivity, the same unconscious speech, the same financial struggles. What they discovered wasn't superhuman ability. What they found was their own natural state. The awakened life isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming who you already are beneath the conditioning, beyond the programming, behind the masks you've worn to survive in a world that taught you to be less than whole. When the four gates align, something extraordinary happens. Life stops feeling like constant effort and starts feeling like natural flow. Decisions become clear because you're no longer torn between competing scenes inside your head. Actions become effective because they arise from a unified center rather than scattered impulses. Your mouth speaks truth effortlessly because you're no longer hiding from yourself. Your emotions stabilize naturally because you're no longer fighting what you feel. Your resources multiply because you're no longer operating from scarcity consciousness. Your mind quiets spontaneously because you're no longer identified with mental noise. This is not theory. This is lived reality for those who have completed the training.
But let me tell you what happens first. Before the flow, before the ease, before the natural mastery emerges, resistance. Everything within you that has been running unconsciously will fight to maintain control. Every habit pattern will intensify before it dissolves. Every unconscious program will surface to be seen and released. Your mouth will want to speak old words in old ways. Your emotions will surge with familiar intensity. Your money patterns will seem more entrenched than ever. Your mind will race faster than before. This is not failure. This is the process. This is what every master has walked through on the way to freedom. The darkness becomes visible before it dissolves. The unconscious rises to consciousness before it transforms. The old self makes its final stand before the new self stabilizes. Expect this. Welcome it. Use it. When resistance arises, it's showing you exactly what needs to be transformed. When old patterns resurface, they're giving you opportunities to choose differently. When unconscious habits feel stronger than ever, they're actually weakening their grip on your life. Stay present through this phase. Don't give up when things feel harder before they feel easier. Don't abandon the practice when the ego fights back. Don't return to old ways when new ways feel uncertain. This is where most people turn back. They taste freedom and then retreat to familiar prison. They touch truth and then choose comfortable lies. They glimpse their power and then shrink back to powerlessness. But you're not most people. You wouldn't have stayed with me this long if you were content with ordinary consciousness. You wouldn't be listening to these words if you were satisfied with scattered existence. You're here because something in you remembers wholeness. Something in you recognizes truth. Something in you is ready for the awakened life. Trust that part of yourself. Follow that inner knowing. Let it guide you through the resistance into the reality that waits beyond. What is that reality? What does the awakened life actually look like? It looks surprisingly ordinary from the outside. The master still wakes up, goes to work, pays bills, faces challenges, deals with difficult people. but the inner experience transforms completely. Where others see problems, you see opportunities for growth. Where others feel overwhelmed, you remain centered. Where others react unconsciously, you respond consciously. Where others scatter their energy, you focus your power. Your conversations become deeper because you listen from presence rather than preparing your next response. People feel heard in your company because you're actually there with them, instead of lost in mental commentary. Your emotional life becomes richer but less dramatic. You feel everything more fully but are disturbed by nothing. Joy arises naturally but doesn't depend on circumstances. Peace becomes your baseline rather than an occasional visitor. Your financial life simplifies dramatically. You spend less but enjoy more. You give more but somehow have more. You work from purpose rather than survival, and abundance flows naturally from authentic contribution. Your mental life becomes spacious and quiet. Thoughts arise that don't create suffering. Plans form that don't create suffering. Plans form that don't generate anxiety. Problems appear that don't overwhelm your peace. Creativity flows because the mind is no longer cluttered with unnecessary noise. This is not a perfect life. This is a present life. This is not a life without challenges. This is a life where challenges become doorways rather than obstacles. The master still faces loss, but grief doesn't become depression. The sage still encounters conflict, but disagreement doesn't become warfare. The awakened person still makes mistakes, but errors become lessons rather than sources of shame. What changes is not the content of life, but your relationship to the content. What transforms is not your circumstances, but your response to circumstances. What shifts is not what happens to you, but what happens through you. You become a beneficial presence wherever you go, not because you try to help everyone, but because your own centeredness creates space for others to find their center. Not because you have all the answers, but because your peace allows others to access their own wisdom. Your family relationships heal because you stop trying to change others and focus on transforming yourself. Your work becomes more fulfilling because you bring consciously. Your friendships deepen because you show up authentically instead of performing for approval. Your friendships deepen because you show up authentically instead of performing for approval. Even strangers are affected by your presence. Something in them remembers their own wholeness when they encounter yours. Something in them relaxes when they meet someone who isn't at war with themselves. This is how the awakened life serves the world themselves. This is how the awakened life serves the world. Not through grand gestures or heroic acts, but through the simple presence of someone who has done their inner work. Not through preaching or teaching, but through being a living example of what becomes possible. But how do you stabilize this state? How do you make the awakened life your permanent reality rather than temporary experience? Through daily practice, through moment-by-moment awareness, through choosing consciousness over unconsciousness in each situation that arises. The 4 gates require daily attention. Your mouth needs conscious guidance every time you speak. Your mood needs aware witness every time emotion arises. Your money needs wise stewardship every time you engage with resources. Your mind needs gentle direction every time thoughts proliferate. This is not a burden. This is the joy of being fully alive. This is not work. This is play at the highest level. This is not effort. This is the effortless effort that comes from aligning with your own nature. Create daily rituals that support your awakening. Begin each morning with a few minutes of conscious breathing. End each day with grateful reflection. Throughout the day, regularly to check in with yourself. How are you speaking? What are you feeling? How are you relating to resources? Where is your mind? These simple practices maintain the connection to your center. They prevent unconsciousness from accumulating. They keep the four gates clear and functioning optimally. But the real practice happens in relationship, in conversations with family, in interactions with colleagues, in encounters with strangers, in your response to unexpected events. Every relationship becomes a mirror showing you where you're conscious and where you're still unconscious. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to express your awakened understanding or to notice where you still react from old patterns. Use these encounters as feedback rather than judgment. When someone triggers you, they're showing you where you still have work to do. When you respond unconsciously, you're getting information about where your practice needs attention. This transforms every relationship into a spiritual practice. Every person becomes a teacher. Every situation becomes a classroom. Every moment becomes an opportunity for growth. The awakened life isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. It's not about never making mistakes. It's about learning from every experience. It's not about having everything figured out. It's about staying curious and open to what life wants to teach you. As your practice matures, something beautiful happens. The four gates begin to function as one integrated system. Your speech naturally reflects your emotional state, which aligns with your resource choices, which mirrors your mental clarity. When you speak, your words carry the weight of your entire being. When you feel, your emotions inform rather than overwhelm. When you engage with money, your actions serve your highest values. When you think, your thoughts support your authentic expression. This integration creates tremendous power, but it's not the power to dominate or control. It's the power to serve. It's not the power to take from others. It's the power to give authentically. It's not the power to force outcomes. It's the power to align with what wants to emerge. People sense this power and are drawn to it, not because they want something from you, but because they recognize something in you that they want to cultivate in themselves. Not because you're trying to influence them, but because your presence naturally inspires them to remember their own potential. This is leadership without position. This is influence without manipulation. This is service without sacrifice. This is love without attachment. The awakened life multiplies itself naturally. One person who has integrated the four gates affects everyone they encounter. That influence ripples outward, creating waves of consciousness that spread far beyond what you can see or measure. Your personal transformation becomes a gift to the world. Your inner work serves the collective healing. Your individual awakening contributes to the evolution of human consciousness. This is not grandiose thinking. This is simple reality. Consciousness is contagious. Peace spreads naturally. Love multiplies when it's genuine. Wisdom flows from those who embody it to those who are ready to receive it. But it all begins with you, with your mouth, with your mode, with your money, with your mind, with your willingness to do the work that most people avoid, with your courage to face what most people deny, with your persistence when most people give up. The path is clear, the practices are simple. The choice is yours. You can continue living as you have been, scattered across the four gates, at war with yourself, struggling against life. Or you can begin today to gather your energy, to integrate your being, to align your gates, to claim your birthright as a conscious being. The awakened life is not a distant dream. It's an immediate possibility. It's not something you achieve in the future. It's not something you achieve in the future. It's something you choose in this moment. Right now you can speak more consciously. Right now you can breathe more deeply. Right now you can feel what you're feeling, without resistance. Right now you can observe your thoughts without believing them all. Right now you can begin to live from the center, rather than the periphery. Right now you can start to express your true nature, rather than your conditioned patterns. Right now you can choose the awakened life. The four gates stand open. The path is illuminated. Your guides await your decision.
But remember what I told you at the beginning. What you try to control ends up controlling you. The awakened life is not about controlling your mouth, mood, money and mind. It's about serving them so completely that they serve you naturally. It's about loving them so deeply that they love you back. It's about understanding them so clearly that they function in harmony. It's about being so present with them that they become expressions of your presence.
This is the paradox of mastery. This is the secret of freedom. This is the key to the awakened life. You already have everything you need. You already are everything you seek. You already possess the wisdom you're searching for. The 4 gates are not obstacles to overcome. They are doorways to walk through. They are not problems to solve. They are gifts to unwrap. They are not enemies to defeat. They are allies waiting to serve your awakening. The time for preparation is over. The time for practice is now. The time for the awakened life is this moment. Will you walk through the gates? Will you claim your power? Will you live the life that is already yours? The choice has always been yours. The choice will always be yours. The choice is yours right now. Choose wisely. Choose consciously. Choose the awakened life. Your mouth, your mood, your money, your mind, your entire being is waiting for your decision. What will it be?